Yes, we are recording. So I'm going to start that again. So if we have a little look at this listening segment, so vital to the work that we do with coaching. And it's something that I believe that we need to work hard at, all of us. It's a muscle that we need to keep working on, because however good we are at listening, we actually are never perfect. Nobody ever can be. I think there's some quite interesting work that Stephen Covey says, and he talks about that we listen in three parts. We start off listening, which is actually quite high level listening. Then we move, so we are actually concentrating in the first bit. Then the second third, we drop about half because we start doing something else. Does anybody know what we tend to do in that second third? And it's perfectly normal. Just shout out if anybody knows what we tend to do in that second third.
Is it that we start thinking about our own perspectives on what the person is saying?
Yes, we do. We start thinking about our own perspectives and what we're going to say in reply. So we stop actually having a high level of concentration and a high level of listening because we're thinking and we've got our own internal narrative going. And then in the final third, it drops even lower. Does anybody know what we're doing then?
Is it the questions that we're going to prompt?
Yeah, we actually interrupt. That's normally what we do. So we never actually get to the final third, which, actually, if you think about your own listening, it is what happens. We stop actually having that full beam of our concentration and we get easily distracted. So I'm raising that because we really just need to keep working at our listening skills. The ICF here are talking about a description of active listening, and I think it's useful, this one. So I'm not going to pick out every point, but you can read that. There is something about you're hearing the client's concerns, but you're picking up what they're saying, maybe about how they're saying it, what they're missing. So it's not just actually listening to the words that they're verbalizing. So you're picking up something around that tone of voice, maybe it's a body language. Maybe what you're doing is you're also then getting into a summary sometimes and a paraphrasing. So you're actually checking back what the client is actually saying to ensure that you've got that clarity. You're encouraging and accepting some of those feelings and emotions and concerns. You're actually letting them be, and accepting them that they're okay to be somehow. You may well be building on the ideas and suggestions, but what you're not doing is completely giving your own ideas and suggestions. You're really focused on what the clients are. And then we've got the final point there, which you do allow the client to vent or to just get out completely everything they're wanting to say. So I think that's quite interesting to see a body. So it's the Institute of Coaching Federation that are actually saying those things. There's another model I'd like to share with you. It's this one here. And this is giving us 3 levels of listening, which is coactive coaching. So that 3 levels of listening is really creating and telling us about what's going on. So it's helping us think about that internal listening. It's helping us focus on the focus listening. And then it's taking it outside and thinking about what's happening on around me, that global listening. So as we go into a coaching conversation, it's quite important that you understand your own levels of listening, what's going on for you. So that's that internal narrative. if you don't get that out of the way, it becomes very hard for you to move into that proper listening space. And then the third part is actually encouraging you to be thinking about what's going on in the context or the environment for you. Now, I'm tempted to just try and give you an example of that. And I think when I'm thinking about my own situation, and I start thinking about my internal listening, so that could well be that all the things that are going on for me in my world. So maybe the things that affected me via COVID, or the things that have affected me during lockdown. So you would have a narrative that you need to try and clear before you get into your coaching conversation with the other individual, because you don't want to color the conversation with them with what you've got gnawing away at you, if that makes sense. So um, I actually have lost a cousin very recently, um, and I could allow that to cause a lot of narrative for me. And in actual fact, I stopped doing a bit of coaching for a month because I needed to allow that to settle. Because I was listening to my internal narrative there. When we move into the global listening, it's actually be thinking about what's actually going on at the moment, kind of globally. And there's so much, isn't there, with the whole situation post pandemic, the fuel crisis. You think about all the noise that's going on at the moment about Christmas shopping, are we going to be able to have things in the shops, all that kind of stuff. We know that's going on, so we need to be aware of it. Is that influencing other people? So I'm just getting you to think about that before we move into an exercise, because what I'd like to do in this exercise is I'm going to put you into pairs back into your groups. And it's just a very quick listening exercise. So there's going to be one listener and one speaker. And the speaker, I'd like you to talk to the listener about how you're seeking to improve as a coach. The listener actually says as little as possible. I'd like you to be on camera so you can see each other's body language, but just enough to encourage the speaker to express their thoughts and keep going. The listener should be conscious of the three different levels of listening that are going on for them. So the internal, the focused, and the global. And then at the end of it, you might have a little discussion about how that went. We're not going to have time for you to repeat the exercise and both do it. So we're just going to have one listener and one speaker for this exercise. And then we're going to have 5 minutes just to discuss how that felt. So I'm going to give you kind of 15 minutes. That's all, to actually do that exercise. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Is everybody okay with that? I'm going to stop recording.